Welcome to the debate. How do you evaluate a pop star who just actively refuses to entertain you?
Right.
Because in May 2026, Ariana Grande handed the world this absolute masterpiece of, well, I'd call it anti-pop.
Oh, totally anti-pop.
Yeah, with her lead single, Hate That I Made You Love Me, from her 8th studio album, Petal. And this track, which she released through her new imprint, Babydoll Music.
Which was a huge deal in itself.
A massive deal. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, giving her, her 10th #1 hit.
Yeah.
But man, it has deeply polarized people. Like critics, fans, everyone is split on this. So the central question we're arguing today is how to actually evaluate the success of this specific track.
Right, because we are definitely split on it.
We really are, because I firmly believe this song is just a brilliant, subversive, lyrical evolution. She's using this really subdued, darker sonic palette to completely deconstruct parasocial relationships and just the isolating burdens of fame.
And see, I am approaching this from a completely different angle. I'm mainly looking at the mechanics of the track.
The mechanics.
Yeah, the production choices, the mixing, because while I acknowledge the lyrics are bold, the track itself is just, it's sonically stagnant. I mean, it suffers from this undeniably muddy production, a really underdeveloped arrangement, and she just fails to push her musical boundaries.
I mean,
especially at the exact moment she finally had the institutional freedom to do whatever she wanted.
Okay, but to really understand what makes this track so brilliant, I think you have to look at the intentionality behind it. Hate That I Made You Love Me is a deliberate subversion of that whole diva pop expectation.
Sure.
She's utilizing this, mid-tempo, almost down-tempo alt-pop and synthwave structure, and it's laced with these very subtle, almost dragging trap elements to force the listener to just, lean in.
Yeah, definitely drags.
But she strips away the vocal theatrics and the massive dance floor drops. She wants you to focus entirely on vulnerability. And what fascinates me most is the reclamation of her own narrative here.
How so?
Well, if you look back 10 years to her unreleased demo from, was it the Sweetener Sessions?
Yeah, the 2016 sessions, yeah.
Right, 2016, that demo was titled Hate That You Made Me Love You. She positioned herself as this totally passive victim of romance.
Right.
The lyrics were like, hate that you own my mind or something.
And stole my pride.
Exactly. It's a very traditional R&B narrative of total surrender.
Passive surrender, yeah.
But now, a decade later, the grammar of the title entirely flips. Hate that I made you love me. The shift from you made me to I made you is just staggering to me.
It's a great catch. Grammatically, it's a huge shift.
She goes from a passive victim to this active, defiant artist. She's acknowledging her own culpability, but she's using it to set strict boundaries with the demanding public.
Right.
It's not about romantic heartbreak anymore. It is an indictment of the audience. It's about the sheer exhaustion of fame,
Yeah, I hear that.
She is drawing a line in the sand, and that subdued instrumentation you don't like, it's the perfect acoustic negative space to let that boundary resonate.
Okay, look, I hear the thematic weight you're pulling from the lyrics. I really do. But you're giving the actual musical composition a massive pass here just because the diary entry is compelling?
I'm not giving it a pass. The music reflects the diary entry.
I agree, the lyrical premise is ballsy. But sonically, the production by Martin and Ilya Salmanzadeh does not sound like acoustic negative space to me.
What does it sound like to you then?
It sounds overly familiar. It's distinctly uninspired. I mean, honestly, it feels like a woozy leftover from the Eternal Sunshine era.
Oh, wow. A leftover?
Yeah, that specific vocal delivery, the breathy, lower register hum, it's become a default crutch for her rather than an artistic choice. When I listen to this track, the rhythm just feels fundamentally unorganized.
But why do you assume the rhythm is unintentionally unorganized?
Because it lacks dynamic shifts. It desperately needs intricate vocal layering, or maybe some rock undertones to elevate it beyond just a pedestrian arrangement.
When you call it unorganized, I hear the exact intentionality of that sonic landscape. Think about the intro.
Okay.
We have this dense, atmospheric synth texture. A lot of people have compared it to a plant wave device. You know those machines.
Right. The things that translate plant biosignals into ambient noise. Yeah, I've seen that comparison.
Exactly. It translates the biochemical signals of plants into the somewhat unpredictable sound. It's organic.
Sure. I hear the plant wave thing, but underneath that atmospheric synth, you get a drum track and a moving bass line that are, from an engineering standpoint, they are actively fighting each other.
Fighting?
Yes, they are messy. Look, usually Max Martin and Ilya are absolute surgeons with frequency carving.
Right, they're legends.
They will carve out the low-mid frequencies to make sure her vocal just sparkles right on top. But here, the synths and the bass line are competing in the exact same 250 hertz frequency range.
I guess, but
It creates an acoustic traffic jam. Instead of feeling avant-garde, it just comes across as muddy to my ears. It feels like they completely neglected the low-end clarity, which just makes the whole mix feel rushed.
I can't agree with that because you're applying a totally conventional pop mixing metric to a song that is actively resisting conventional pop.
Is it, though?
Yes. You're asking for surgical precision in a song about emotional messiness. She explicitly described the Petal era as being, quote, full of life and growing through the cracks of something cold and hard.
I remember that quote, yeah.
She literally warned us the album was a little feral. So that slightly off-kilter rhythm, that somewhat messy, clashing bass frequency you're talking about, it intentionally reflects the feral, emotional indecision of the song itself.
Feral doesn't mean you just forget to EQ the low mids, though.
But look at the visual aesthetic. The album's cover art. It's this stark, black and white, uncomfortably close-up photograph of her smiling.
Right.
Her face is partially obscured by her hair, and she's completely devoid of the signature high ponytail.
Yeah, it's very stripped back.
It's totally stripped of the polish we expect. And the production is just mirroring that visual aesthetic. It's sensory deprivation.
Sensory deprivation is an interesting way to put it.
But that's exactly what it is. Max Martin usually gives you like a sensory overload, right? A fireworks display of hooks and pristine high-end frequencies.
Exactly. Mathematical perfection.
Right. So by stripping all of that away, your ears are desperately searching for a clean pop melody to grab onto, which forces you to pay absolute attention to the lyrics. It's supposed to feel slightly uncomfortable and raw.
Okay, but there is a very fine line between intentional discomfort and just, a bad mix.
I wouldn't call it a bad mix.
Even intentional discomfort needs to be musically engaging. I understand the feral aesthetic you're pointing out, but when you have a pop architect like Max Martin in the room,
Yeah.
a guy whose entire legacy is built on the perfection of the modern pop hook, and the result is a track that just sort of meanders without a structural payoff, that's a problem.
I don't think it meanders.
I keep getting distracted by the production choices because it sounds like they just applied the exact same formula they used on We Can't Be Friends or True Story, but they just muted the energy.
Muted the energy?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like sensory deprivation to me. It sounds like she's drifting musically. You're focusing so heavily on the emotion she's trying to convey, but I'm listening to the arrangement.
But the arrangement...
And the arrangement lacks any dynamic range compression. It's entirely flat.
Okay, but that flatness you're criticizing is exactly the setup for the bridge.
Is it?
Yes. If she had given us a soaring, perfectly compressed Max Martin hook earlier in the song, the devastating drop into the bridge just wouldn't carry the same weight.
I don't know about that.
I really believe the bridge is the absolute thematic centerpiece of the entire track. She drops into this lower alto register, highly reminiscent of early deep cuts like Best Mistake.
Oh, I love Best Mistake.
Right? And she delivers these lines, I've held your projections when you felt so insecure. Tell me why is it this way? Why you so hate to see women endure?
The lyrics are sharp. I won't argue that.
Is it really my fault you all gave me your hearts of your own accord?
Why you so hate to see women endure is a fantastic cutting line.
It is incredibly profound. She is directly confronting the intense public scrutiny, the parasocial projection, just the exhausting way audiences demand that female pop stars be perfectly packaged.
While constantly metabolizing trauma for public consumption. Yeah.
Exactly. And the music video brilliantly underscores this. You have this incredible horror comedy homage co-starring Justin Long.
Oh, the Justin Long video is amazing.
Right? Pulling visual language from films like Barbarian and The Hitcher.
Yeah.
She literally traps him in a surreal, inescapable nightmare. She buries him in the desert while she awakens in an underground bunker, calmly reading her own journals. It is a dark, brilliant subversion of the obsessive fan dynamic.
Turning it into a literal horror movie. I totally agree. I love the video. It's super cinematic.
Thank you.
You have this incredibly dark, feral energy. I mean, Justin Long setting himself on fire, the multiple versions of Grande surrounding him at that diner.
So good.
But my issue is that I just don't buy that the music matches the brilliance of that visual or lyrical concept.
How does it not match?
When you listen to the bridge you just quoted, musically it is incredibly weak. I mean, if the song wanted to convey this dark, haunting, horror movie energy, why didn't the arrangement build to a climax that actually punches?
Because a punch is exactly what the audience expects.
Where is the choir? Where are the rock textures that are faintly bubbling under the surface of the verses, but they're never allowed to explode?
But
It stays entirely within a single dynamic mezzo-piano level from the first verse straight through the bridge.
because an explosion would give the listener exactly what they want. It would give them the catharsis she is actively denying them.
But as a piece of music, it completely fails to delineate the verses from the bridge.
That's your expectation of pop rules.
A pop song, even an anti-pop song, requires some form of tension and release. Max Martin and Ilya completely dropped the ball here.
I disagree.
Think about it. If you have a lyric that confrontational, accusing your audience of projecting their insecurities onto you, the music needs to swell to support the confrontation.
Not necessarily.
Instead, the music just continues its monotonous, woozy crawl. It feels like she had an incredibly strong point of view lyrically, but completely abandoned her point of view musically.
Abandoned her musical point of view. Wow. I would argue that her refusal to give you that big, soaring, operatic climax is her musical point of view for this era.
I just don't see it.
Think about the cultural context of this release. This is the lead single for Petal. She released it at the end of May, heading right into the summer,
Right.
dropping a somber, depressing, mid-tempo track about the suffocating nature of fame is an incredibly bold, anti-summer choice for a lead pop single. It is a refusal to play the game.
I mean, it is unconventional, certainly. But being unconventional doesn't automatically equate to being structurally sound.
But it secured her 10th #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100.
Chart position isn't everything.
It tied her for the 10th most #1s in the chart's history. It debuted at #1 globally. That proves the approach resonated deeply with the public.
Yeah, but
The evolution here is her absolute refusal to cater to the fandom's demand for aggressive pop bangers.
okay, fair.
There is a very vocal, fractured segment of her fan base that just wants her to remake Break Free or Into You forever.
True, they do want that.
They want the skyscraper with the neon lights. By releasing Hate That I Made You Love Me, she is choosing authentic, somewhat uncomfortable expression over crowd-pleasing maximalism. That is true evolution for an artist of her stature. She doesn't need to scream to be heard anymore.
Look, I hear the chart statistics, and obviously an Ariana Grande lead single is going to debut massively based on sheer momentum alone.
It's more than just momentum.
But let's look at the institutional context of the Petal era you mentioned earlier. This album is being released under her own imprint, Babydoll Music.
Yeah, with Republic Records.
Right, in association with Republic. That signifies ultimate creative freedom. She is holding the reins entirely.
Exactly.
But instead of taking a genuine sonic risk like, leaning fully into dream pop or working with a producer like Dev Hynes.
Dev Hynes would be cool.
Right? He thrives in this atmospheric R&B infused indie space. But instead of that, she retreated to the safe, comfortable formula with Martin and Ilya.
Wait, you really consider this a safe formula? A muddy anti-pop track with no high notes?
I do, because the personnel is safe, the vocal approach is safe. I keep getting stuck on the fact that if she really wanted to make an avant-garde, feral statement about her fame, she should have changed the architects of that fame.
I don't think she needed to.
Max Martin is a genius, obviously, but his work with Grande lately has started to sound void of levels. We saw this exact same critique applied to Taylor Swift's recent work with Jack Antonoff, you know?
Oh, yeah, the Antonoff fatigue.
Right. When you stay with the same producers for too long, the energy flatlines. They stop challenging each other. Dev Hynes would have nailed the vibe of this song.
Maybe.
He understands how to use spacious, 80s gated reverb and negative space without making the mix sound muddy or clashing the bass frequencies.
I mean, I see why you might wish for a Dev Hynes collaboration sonically. That would be fascinating. I won't deny that.
It would have been perfect.
But I think you are completely dismissing the intimacy and trust that comes from working with longtime collaborators, especially when you are writing your absolute most vulnerable material.
Trust is important, sure.
Grande solely wrote the lyrics for this track. That is a massive step. Furthermore, she is credited as a producer, a vocal producer, and an engineer on the song.
True.
There is a lyric in the second verse, "'Cause I Barely Tried," which is a direct thematic continuation of the exhaustion she hinted at in Eternal Sunshine.
Right. The exhaustion theme.
Working with Ilya and Max Martin allowed her to feel safe enough in the studio to be this lyrically feral. The musical restraint you are calling stagnant, I am looking at as a highly protected intentional boundary.
But does a protected boundary make for a well-arranged pop song? That's where we consistently disconnect here.
I think it does.
You are continuously analyzing the emotions and the themes, and I agree they are complex and fascinating. The psychological shift from the 2016 demo to the 2026 single is a brilliant narrative arc.
It really is.
But I am analyzing the production choices, the vocal layers, the EQing, the mixing decisions, and on those fronts, the song feels like a draft.
A draft?
It genuinely feels like a melody pass that accidentally got mastered and released to the public.
Well, ironically, she actually leaned into that exact critique.
Did she?
Yes, she released alternate digital editions in the second week, including the Melody Pass version and the airy lyric draft from bed.
Oh, right, the bed versions.
Those versions strip it back even further. She is deliberately exposing the raw framework of the song to the audience. She is showing you the scaffolding.
Which is a cool marketing tactic to secure a second week at #1 for the superfans, sure.
It's more than a tactic.
But it doesn't fix the core arrangement of the primary single. If anything, it just reinforces my point that the primary song feels unfinished to begin with.
I don't think it feels unfinished at all.
If she had played around more with her signature R&B vocal arrangements to add a structural twist to this dream pop aesthetic, it could have been spectacular. Instead, because she didn't layer those vocals or push the dynamic range, it just feels like she is musically drifting through a great poem.
Well, I think where we ultimately land is fundamentally a question of what we value more in this phase of her career: the architecture or the exposed scaffolding.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
For me, Hate That I Made You Love Me is a courageous, thematic milestone. She brilliantly utilizes a subdued, almost murky sonic palette to draw firm boundaries and reflect on the isolating, projected reality of fame.
Right.
It is a song that actively refuses to perform for the listener. And by denying us that traditional pop catharsis, she delivers one of her most authentic and challenging artistic statements to date.
And I look at that same blueprint and see a structure that just fails to support its own weight. While the lyrical message is undeniably powerful and culturally relevant, the track as a musical composition is hindered by underdeveloped arrangements and a lack of dynamic contrast.
We definitely disagree there.
It suffers from an over-reliance on a tired production style from her usual collaborators, and it simply fails to match the fierce audacity of its own lyrics.
Well, what we undeniably agree on is that this track marks a fascinating psychological shift in how this artist interacts with her audience.
Absolutely.
The friction between the message and the medium is palpable, and maybe that friction is the point.
Maybe so.
As listeners continue to explore the rest of the 12-track Petal album, there is clearly much more to uncover about how this lyrical bravery meshes with her evolving sound.
Yeah, the conversation about her trajectory as an independent imprint artist is really just beginning.
Exactly. So, does an artist at the pinnacle of their career owe us another shiny skyscraper? Or should we learn to sit quietly with the dim Polaroid they hand us?
That's the question.
That is something only the listener can decide. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.